So a lot of people tell me it can be hard to find time to get out in the workshop, work on projects and master the craft, and it can be demoralising. It's enough to make a lot of people give up. So what if there was a way you could learn to build the sorts of projects you've always dreamed of in just 15 minutes? Hey, it's Peter here from Northern Works. Now I'm very much a part-time maker, which means I'm constantly looking for little scraps of time here and there, wherever I can find 15 minutes to get in the workshop, grow my skills, and actually get on with making the types of furniture projects that I really love to make. So here are 5 ways you can use any spare 15 minutes to make you a master woodworker. Let me just tidy up a bit and I'll tell you what they are. Whoa, don't switch off. This is the first tip. Whether it's me just being messy or other people using my workbench as a bin, I often find I have to spend a ton of time clearing space or looking for tools before I can actually start work. So spending a few minutes here and there clearing the junk or putting tools back where they belong really makes a difference to how well your projects go. Just ask anyone who's ever been in the middle of a glue up, racing around, looking for an extra clamp. And don't neglect your scraps bin. I hadn't emptied mine for a couple of years and it was a real surprise what was in there. Why have I even kept that? Well, you're welcome to that bit, Arch. Having emptied it, I discovered some great leftovers of genuinely useful wood that I can either use in little future projects or around the workshop. And sometimes, while clearing up the darkest parts of your workspace that you usually try really hard to hide from people, you might find something genuinely useful. That's the perfect place to keep workbench jigs. Now you might think this all sounds a bit pointless, but a tidy workshop is an efficient workshop. You spend less time looking for your tools and more time actually learning to master them. Another good thing about taking the time to tidy is it's also an opportunity just to check how your tools are, and I've noticed that my planes, it's probably at least a couple of weeks since I sharpened the blades, and I know for a fact that my saw blades are getting a bit gnarly, which is having an impact on my projects because not only do cuts take longer to do, but I also have to spend extra time cleaning up the joinery or sanding off the finish at the end. So I think it's time to do something about that while I've got 15 minutes or so. And it's the perfect amount of time to keep your tools prepped and ready. If you're using power tools like a circular saw or routers, you probably notice over time you get more and more burn marks on your workpieces, and it's easy to assume that your blades are getting blunt. But the reality is they're probably just dirty, especially if you use a lot of sheet materials or sappy woods like pine. You can get specialist cleaning solutions, but I just left mine to soak in some warm soapy water with regular dish soap and gave them a quick scrub. Clean blades mean cleaner cuts, which also means a lot less time spent sanding, which is a bonus. That's loads better. That was only about 10 minutes. Not bad. Now it only normally takes a couple of minutes to put a sharp edge on a chisel, so it's the sort of thing that I'd normally just do as part of my time in the workshop. But for planes, that takes a little bit longer to get a really good edge. And for my chisels, it's been a while since I've put a proper bevel on them, so I think I'm going to take my time a little bit with this. I don't really do anything fancy with my chisels and planes. I just work carefully through the grits on my sharpening stones. I also gave them a rub down with 180 grit sandpaper to take off some of the rust, and I'll give them a squirt of camellia oil later to protect them. This setup is great because I can just leave it set up on a day when I'm working from home and then pop out when I've got 10 minutes between Zoom calls and sharpen another chisel. Off the stones, these are good enough for rough carpentry, but for fine woodworking we want to get them extra crispy, so I'm going to use something like a leather strop, because to be a real master of your craft you need to take good care of your tools. But it's this next tip that will really accelerate your skill level, and to be honest, it's the difference between people who go on to make incredible projects and people who get disappointed and give up. You know, there's a trend that I've noticed recently where people basically are trying really hard, brand new skills for the first time halfway through a project. Now, I don't know whether this is a social media thing or whether it's always been there and we're just always rushing to do projects and get them finished. But I know I've been guilty of this for sure, and whenever I have done it, well, I've just been a bit disappointed with the results. And there's really only one answer to this problem. Practice, practice, practice. Even the fundamental things like cutting a straight line, even drawing a straight line with a square and a pencil, they're surprisingly hard to get right. And whether you like to use hand tools, power tools, or a mixture, taking 15 minutes here and there to practice something over and over and over and over, even if it's still not perfect, is the only way you're going to truly improve your skills. Watching videos is great for learning concepts, but to master your tools, you have to use them for real. And ideally, not in the middle of an actual project. And don't think practice is just for beginners. I mean, look at someone like Paul Sellers, a real master of the craft, and even like 200 years into his woodworking career, he still makes time just to practice the fundamentals. Of course, it is possible to make projects as well in a short space of time. You might just need to limit your scale a little bit. I really like solving workshop storage problems when I've got a spare 10 minutes, or making a new tool. I previously made a mallet, which weirdly helped me to learn how to do panel glue ups. And now I'm making a marking gauge so I can learn how to make high quality dovetails. Small projects are nice because you use a lot of different techniques, but each individual process only takes a few minutes at a time, so you can kind of snack on them over time. If you want to see more details on how I made the marking gauge, then make sure you sign up for my mailing list and get access to a subscriber-only video. The link is in the description. Small projects are also much lower stakes than a big project. You know, if it all goes terribly wrong, you've not spent hundreds of pounds on materials and no one has to lie and say, no, it's a lovely coffee table, I really like the wonky leg. You can also do this for your big projects too. One of the most intimidating things about starting any big project is working out how you're going to fit it all into the evening or the weekend that you've allocated to it. And while deadlines can be really good, especially if you're building something for a client, they can add a bunch of stress. And that can mean that you end up making more mistakes, which leads to more frustration. So the next time you're working on a project, instead of trying to finish the whole thing in one sitting, graze on it a little bit at a time. 10 minutes of rough cutting here, a snack-sized layout session there, glue up one leg at a time. Some of my favourite projects have ended up being the ones where I've really taken my time, like I'm talking months instead of days. And it meant that I could take my time and really get my techniques right, or at least as right as I could at that point. Not every week has to end with a finished piece of furniture. Now obviously you can't become a master of anything in just 15 minutes, but add up all those little chunks of time and you'll be really surprised by what you can learn. And you know what else takes about 15 minutes? Whatever video you are going to watch next. So why not get off your bum, get off YouTube, pick up some tools, try something new. See you again.